The twin suns of Valora 9 burned high over the dusty plains, shining down on the wildest marketplace in the outer colonies. The Grand Trade Bazaar stretched for miles, full of noise, smells, and strange creatures from every corner of the galaxy. Stalls made of metal scraps and glowing fabrics lined the streets, selling everything from alien fruit to half-living machines. Traders shouted in dozens of languages, each trying to catch the attention of buyers passing through the crowd. Among the chaos, one voice stood out, loud, deep, and full of laughter. "Buy a cow, get a working alien woman for free." The voice came from a huge, green-skinned alien named Groth. His massive tusks gleamed under the light as he waved his thick arms toward a pen of livestock. The animals inside looked almost like earth cows, except for their extra eyes and metallic tails. Beside the pen stood someone different. She was tall and thin, with silver skin that shimmered in the sunlight. Her eyes glowed faintly blue, and a small collar blinked red around her neck. She didn't move. She didn't speak. She simply stood there, hands folded, eyes empty, like a statue waiting to come alive. Groth laughed again. "Strong worker. Can clean, repair, even herd your beasts. You take the cow and she comes free." Some of the nearby aliens chuckled. Others looked away. It wasn't unusual in this part of the galaxy. Bioengineered workers were common. Still, a few humans in the crowd turned their heads, their faces uneasy, and then from the back of the market, a man in a gray jacket stopped walking. He was human, tall, sun-browned, with calm eyes that had seen too much. His name was Ethan Cross, a trader who traveled between colonies buying and selling tech scraps, food, and small livestock. He wasn't rich, but he had a reputation, fair, honest, and always calm. Now he was not calm. Ethan stepped closer to Groth's stall. The alien farmer spotted him and grinned wide. "Ah, human, you look like a man who knows quality. Finest herd this side of the neighbor dunes. Buy one, and I'll even throw in the worker." Ethan looked at the silver-skinned woman. Her expression didn't change, but for a moment, just a second, he thought he saw something in her eyes. Fear? Hope? He couldn't tell. He asked quietly, "What do you mean by worker?" Groth slammed his hand against the metal fence, laughing. "She's built for work, not human, not even freeborn. Half metal, half clone, made to serve. You feed her once a week, oil her joints, and she'll work until she breaks. Best deal in the market." Ethan frowned. "You're selling her like she's a thing." The alien's laughter stopped. His tone dropped low. "She is a thing, look at her. Does she look alive to you? Just a tool. A tool that follows orders. That's what she was made for." Ethan didn't answer right away. He could hear the market noise around him, the shouting, the trading, the laughter. But it all faded, replaced by a quiet anger building in his chest. He turned back to Groth. "How much for the cow?" Groth's smile returned. "For you, human? 800 credits, and you get her for free. Good deal." Ethan reached into his jacket, pulling out a small credit chip. "I'll take both, but she's not free, she's herself." Groth's laughter exploded again. "You're buying the broken toy? Fine, I'll take your credits, but don't come crying when she stops working." As Groth handed over the chip reader, Ethan could feel the alien's eyes watching him, amused, curious. The transaction beeped complete. The collar around the silver woman's neck flickered, then went dark. Ethan turned to her. "You're free now." She didn't speak. She didn't even move. Only her glowing eyes followed him as he led the strange cow away from the pen. "Come on," Ethan said softly. "You don't have to stay here." After a long pause, she took a small step forward, then another, and slowly, she followed him through the crowd. Behind them, Groth leaned on the fence, still laughing. "You'll regret it, human. You can't fix what's broken." Ethan didn't look back, but as they walked away, he felt it, a chill in the air, like the moment before a storm. He didn't know what the woman was. He didn't know why he cared. All he knew was this. The look in her eyes wasn't empty anymore. It was alive. and something deep inside him whispered that by the end of this, nothing on Valora 9 would ever be the same again. Ethan Cross walked slowly through the crowded streets of Valora 9, the alien cow tugging on its leash behind him. The creature had 6 legs and a calm, dull stare, its metallic tail clinking softly against the ground. Beside it, the silver-skinned woman followed without a sound. She walked smoothly, her steps light and perfect, almost too perfect, like a machine copying a human's movement. The suns were setting, painting the dusty sky red and gold. Ethan's small cargo shuttle waited at the far edge of the bazaar, parked between rusted droids and broken hover bikes. When they reached it, he pressed a code on the door panel. The hatch opened with a hiss and the smell of warm air and engine oil filled the air. He turned to her. "You can come in." For a moment she just stood there, blinking slowly, her glowing blue eyes watching him. Then she stepped inside. The ship was small, just one room for sleeping, one for tools, and a corner kitchen with old metal shelves. Ethan led the cow to the storage area, gave it a block of feed, and then turned to look at his strange new companion. She stood in the middle of the room, hands clasped in front of her, still silent. The collar around her neck was dark now, the light completely gone. Without that red glow, she looked softer, more alive. Ethan pulled out a bottle of water and handed it to her. "Here, drink." She tilted her head slightly, then took it. The bottle was light in her hand, but she held it carefully, like she wasn't sure what to do. She looked down at the water, and then at Ethan, and whispered in a soft, mechanical tone, "Is this an allowed?" Her voice was quiet, strange, but there was a question in it. "A real question," Ethan nodded. "You don't need permission. You can do whatever you want." She took a sip. The water touched her lips, and for the first time, a tiny spark of surprise crossed her face. Almost human. Ethan sat down on a crate near the workbench. "Do you have a name?" She didn't answer. "Do you remember where you came from?" He tried again. Silence. Finally, she said softly, "They called me Worker Unit 7. I repaired things, machines, farms, power lines. When I broke, they fixed me. When I slowed down, they shocked me." Ethan's jaw tightened. "You're not a unit, you're someone." She looked up, her blue eyes brightening. "Someone?" "Yes." He stood and pointed to himself. "I'm Ethan, a person. You are too." Her head tilted again, like she was trying to understand a word she had never heard before. "Ethan." He smiled slightly. "Close enough." Night fell outside. The desert winds began to blow against the ship's metal walls, making them hum softly. Ethan started repairing one of his damaged engine coils. He could feel her eyes watching him, silent, careful, curious. Then something strange happened. As he struggled to fit a small power cell into the engine core, she stepped closer. "Allow me," she said simply. Her voice was still calm, but now it had confidence. She reached out her slender hand, and in seconds the power cell locked perfectly into place. The engine lights flickered on. Ethan blinked. "How did you—" She didn't answer. She just looked at her hand as if seeing it for the first time. The faint blue veins under her skin pulsed with light. For the first time since he met her, she looked afraid. "I don't remember how I did that," she whispered. "It's like my hands know something my mind forgot." Ethan leaned forward. "It's okay. Maybe it'll come back to you." She looked away, silent again. He sighed and turned off the engine light. "You should rest. You're safe here." But when he looked back, she wasn't resting. She was sitting on the floor beside the wall, staring at the night sky through the small window, her reflection glowing in the glass. Outside, distant thunder rolled across the plains. In the far-off market, Groth sat drinking with other traders, laughing about the foolish human who bought a broken toy. But as he laughed, a faint sound came from his communicator, a message from the Valoran Control Syndicate. It said, "Worker Unit 7's tracking signal reactivated. Retrieve immediately. Priority level, critical. Groth froze. The laughter stopped. He looked at the dark horizon, toward the desert where Ethan's ship rested. Meanwhile, on that same ship, the woman finally spoke again, her voice soft but filled with something new. Not fear, but wonder. "My name," she whispered. "It wasn't Seven, I think it was Lyra." Ethan looked at her. "Lyra," he repeated. "That's a good name." And outside, unseen in the darkness, 3 glowing drones lifted off from the market and began to fly silently toward them. The night on Valora 9 was just beginning, and so was everything else. The twin moons of Valora 9 hung low in the sky, glowing like silver eyes above the endless desert. Ethan's small cargo ship sat quietly among the dunes, its lights dimmed to avoid attention. Inside, everything was still, except for the faint hum of machines and the slow breathing of the man and the strange alien woman he had rescued. Ethan had fallen asleep on the floor beside his workbench. He was tired after hours of fixing the ship's engine, his tools still scattered around. The alien cow slept in its pen, its metallic tail twitching now and then. The air inside was warm and heavy with the smell of oil and sand, but one person wasn't asleep. Lyra sat on the floor, wide awake. Her glowing blue eyes reflected the light from the control panel. Her mind was quiet but restless, full of fragments. Flashes of memories she couldn't piece together. A hand reaching toward her. Voices saying numbers. Sparks. Pain. Silence. She looked at her hands again. Soft silver skin that felt alive yet different. When she pressed her fingers together, small lines of blue light flickered across her palms. She didn't understand it. She didn't understand herself. Ethan had said she was free. The word echoed in her head again and again. "Free," she whispered. It felt strange on her tongue, both heavy and beautiful. Then she heard a soft click behind her. The ship's power grid was weak. A loose wire sparked. She tilted her head, curious. Slowly she stood, moving with perfect balance. Without making a sound, she opened the control panel. Her hands began to move on their own, smooth, fast, almost like instinct. She adjusted wires, replaced fuses, reconnected circuits. Sparks glowed blue, dancing along her fingertips, and the lights across the ship flickered to life. When she was done, everything was running perfectly. The hum of the engines was steady now, even stronger than before. She stood still, looking at her glowing hands. For the first time, she smiled, a small, quiet smile of wonder. Behind her, Ethan stirred awake. He blinked and looked around, confused by the sudden light. What happened?" Lyra turned toward him. "Your power grid was unstable. I repaired it." He sat up slowly, rubbing his eyes. "You fixed my ship?" She nodded once. Ethan stood, checking the controls. Every reading was perfect, better than when he'd first bought the ship. "You're incredible. You did this while I was sleeping?" "I only followed patterns," she said softly. "I don't know how I knew what to do." Ethan smiled. "Maybe it's just part of who you are." Her gaze shifted toward the window where the desert winds howled softly outside. "Who I am," she repeated. "I don't know that." Ethan leaned against the wall. "Then maybe we can find out. Together." The words hung in the air. Lyra turned to look at him, her face calm but thoughtful. Nobody had ever spoken to her that way. Nobody had ever offered her anything but orders. She didn't know what to say, so she said nothing. A soft alarm suddenly beeped on the control panel. Ethan frowned and walked over. "That's strange. Motion sensors picking something up outside." Lyra's eyes flashed brighter. "Drones," she whispered without hesitation. He looked at her. "How do you know that?" "I don't," she said, her voice lower now. "I just feel it." Ethan peered out through the ship's small window. The dunes shimmered under the moonlight, but in the distance, 3 glowing dots floated across the sky, moving fast, in perfect formation. "Trouble," he muttered. He quickly turned off the outer lights and powered down the engines. The inside of the ship went dark again, the hum fading into silence. Only the faint blue glow from Lyra's eyes remained. "Those drones," Ethan whispered. "Are they looking for you?" Lyra stared at the lights outside. Her face showed no fear, only a deep sadness. "Yes," she said quietly. "They always find us." Ethan's heart sank. "Who's us?" Lyra shook her head. "I don't know." I only remember running before everything went dark. He placed a hand on her shoulder, gentle but firm. You're not running alone this time. She looked up at him, surprised. In her glowing eyes there was a flicker of something new. Trust. Outside, the drones hovered closer, scanning the dunes. Their red beams swept over the sand, stopping just short of the hidden ship. One of them turned, listening to faint data signals in the air. Inside, Lyra's collar, the one Groth had removed the light from, began to blink faintly again. She froze. Ethan saw it too. What's happening? Her voice trembled. They found me? The blinking turned into a steady red glow. Then the ship's warning lights flashed, and an automated voice spoke softly through the speakers. Incoming signal detected. Tracking lock established. Ethan ran to the control board. We need to move now. But before he could start the engine, Lyra stepped forward, her voice calm and certain. Let me handle this, she said. Her eyes flared bright blue, and the red light on her collar flickered, once, twice, and then went out completely. The drones outside stopped moving. Their red searchlights froze. One by one, they turned off and dropped silently into the sand. Ethan turned to her, amazed. What did you just do? Lyra looked down at her hands again, still glowing faintly. I think, she whispered, I just remembered a part of who I was. And outside, the night of Valora 9 fell silent again, too silent, as if the desert itself was holding its breath. Morning came slowly over the desert world of Valora 9. The two suns rose like fire over the dunes, painting the sand gold and red. The wind carried fine dust across the sky, whispering through the cracks of Ethan's small ship. Inside, the air was quiet. Too quiet. Ethan stood near the window, staring at the horizon. The night's events replayed in his mind, the glowing drones, the flashing collar, and Lyra's strange power that shut them down. It didn't make sense. No machine he knew could do that. No living being either. Behind him, Lyra sat by the workbench, hands resting on her knees. She looked peaceful, but there was tension in her stillness. The faint blue glow under her skin had dimmed, yet her eyes remained bright. Ethan turned toward her. You didn't tell me you could do that, he said quietly. She looked up. I didn't know I could. You shut down 3 drones with your mind, Lyra. That's not something people just don't know. I am not people, she said softly. I am something else. Her voice was calm, but Ethan could hear the sadness in it. He crossed his arms. Then let's figure out what that something else is. He opened a small medical scanner from his tool chest. It was an old human device used for simple body scans. This won't hurt, he said. I just want to see what's inside, what makes you different. Lyra nodded once. Do it. Ethan aimed the scanner at her chest. The screen came alive with blue light, showing lines and readings. At first it looked almost normal, organs, bones, nerves. But then the image shifted. Underneath the organic tissue were networks of thin metallic threads moving like veins. Energy pulsed through them, slow and steady. Ethan stepped back, eyes wide. You've got nanowires inside you, a living machine network. It's part of your body. Lyra's expression didn't change. That's what they built. Flesh that obeys metal, a mind that forgets. Ethan frowned. Who's they? I don't know, she said, looking down at her hands. I remember pieces, white rooms, metal tables, voices talking about control. They said we were hybrids made for labor, built to survive any planet. But some of us began to remember things we were never supposed to. Dreams, feelings. She paused. So they destroyed us. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. Destroyed? You mean killed? Lyra nodded. All but me. The silence that followed was heavy. Ethan looked at her, at the mix of human softness and alien strength, and realized how wrong it was that someone like her was made just to serve. Then how did you survive? He asked, her voice lowered. I ran. I hid in the storage bay of a supply ship. They found me later, sold me to a trader, then to Groth. Every time I forgot a little more of who I was. Until you. Ethan stared at her. Until me? You turned off the collar, she said. When you did, something inside me woke up again. Outside, the suns climbed higher, their light flooding through the windows. The desert shimmered like fire. Ethan took a slow breath. If they're still looking for you, we need to move. Far from the trade routes, maybe the outer moons. Lyra looked out at the desert. Running won't work. They will find me again. The signal inside me will call to them. He frowned. Then we remove it. Her eyes met his and sharp, focused. Can you? Ethan hesitated. I can try. He gathered his tools, small cutters, scanners, and a stabilizer gel. Lyra sat perfectly still as he worked, finding the signal device near the base of her neck, hidden under the skin. It pulsed faintly, giving off a low hum. Ethan whispered, "Whoever made you didn't want you free." "They wanted control," she said. "They feared what I could become." "Then let's make them afraid for a reason," he replied. With one careful motion, Ethan deactivated the signal core and pulled it free. It was a tiny black sphere, no bigger than a coin. The moment it came out, the lights inside flickered and died. Lyra gasped, not in pain but in release. Her shoulders relaxed. The glow under her skin brightened slightly, spreading warmth through her body. Ethan smiled faintly. There, no more tracking. But then his scanner beeped again, softly at first, then louder. He looked down. The sphere was still pulsing faintly, even without power. A new reading flashed on the screen. Signal transfer detected. Ethan's eyes widened. It sent something before shutting down. Lyra looked at him calmly, though her eyes darkened. Then they know where we are. Outside, in the blazing desert distance, a shadow appeared in the sky. A black ship descending fast. Ethan clenched his fists. We're not running this time. Lyra stood beside him, her blue eyes glowing brighter than ever. Good, she said softly. Because I think it's time they remembered who I am. The hum of the approaching ship grew louder, shaking the sand outside, and deep inside the small cargo vessel. The air filled with a strange new energy, alive, waiting to be unleashed. The desert wind howled across the dunes like a living thing. Sand spiraled high into the orange sky as a dark ship descended from the clouds. It was long and sharp, built for hunting. A Velaran command craft armed with scanners, energy nets, and laser cannons. Ethan stood at the window of his small cargo ship, watching it land half a mile away. His heart pounded, but his face stayed calm. They found us, he said quietly. Lyra stood beside him. Her blue eyes glowed brighter than ever, her silver skin shining in the morning light. Yes, she said. They always do. The ship's hatch opened in the distance, and 6 armored aliens stepped out. Their armor was dark red, marked with the symbol of the Control Syndicate. They moved fast and silent, like hunters. One of them raised a scanner, searching. Ethan turned to Lyra. We can still leave. My ship's ready. We'll outfly them. She shook her head. They'll track us through hyperspace. They always follow the signal. You don't have that signal anymore, Ethan said firmly. I removed it. Her voice was calm. It's not just in my neck, Ethan, it's in my blood. For a second, he said nothing. Then he grabbed his jacket, his mind racing. Then we'll make them chase the wrong signal. He ran to the control panel, opening the ship's systems. The engine hummed, ready. He set a fake tracking beacon on one of his empty supply crates and pushed it toward the back hatch. When I launch it, it'll fly east, straight across the desert. They'll follow it. Lyra watched him work. There was something new in her eyes. A quiet respect, maybe even admiration. You risk your life for someone you don't know, she said softly. Ethan smiled faintly. You're not someone I don't know anymore. Outside, the hunters were moving closer. Sand hissed beneath their boots. The leader raised his weapon, scanning for heat signatures. Target located. Power reading detected, he growled into his comm. Ethan pressed a button and the fake crate blasted off into the distance, leaving a glowing trail. The aliens turned at once. Signal locked! Pursue! Their ship rose again, chasing the false beacon. For a moment, silence returned. Ethan exhaled. That should give us time. But Lyra shook her head. Not enough. There's always another ship. As if answering her words, a deep rumble filled the air. From the clouds above, another shadow appeared. Larger, heavier, and closer than before. Ethan cursed under his breath. We're not running this time, he said. He grabbed his pulse rifle. An old human-made weapon, scratched and half-broken but reliable. You stay inside. I'll... Before he could finish, Lyra stepped forward, placing a hand on his chest. You can't fight them alone. Her eyes flashed. But we can. Without waiting, she walked past him and opened the ship's door. The desert wind roared in. Sand whipped around her silver body, glowing faintly in the light. Ethan followed her outside. Lyra! The new syndicate ship landed hard on the sand, its engines kicking up clouds. From its hatch came a massive alien, taller than any of the others, his armor shining black with red markings. His voice boomed through a speaker. Unit 7, return now. You are property of the syndicate. You belong to us. Lyra stood still, her long hair blowing in the wind. I do not belong to you, she said. Her voice carried through the storm, calm and sharp. The alien commander raised a hand. Then you will be recycled. The soldiers moved forward. Energy weapons charged, glowing red. Ethan raised his rifle, aiming steady. You'll have to go through me first, the commander laughed. Human courage. Always amusing, he fired first. A blast of red energy shot through the air. But before it hit, Lyra stepped forward. She raised her hand. The blast stopped midair, frozen in front of her like trapped lightning. The soldiers hesitated. The air shimmered around her, glowing blue. Her voice changed, stronger now, echoing. I remember what you did, she said. You built us to serve, but we were never yours. The blue light grew brighter, forming a ring around her body. Sand lifted off the ground, spinning around them like a storm. Ethan watched in awe. Lyra, her eyes burned like stars. Stay behind me, the commander shouted. Fire! Hundreds of red beams shot toward her, but none reached. Every blast hit the wall of blue energy and disappeared. Then with one motion, she pushed her hands forward, and the entire desert exploded with light. A wave of blue force rippled outward, knocking the soldiers off their feet, tearing the ship's armor open like paper. The commander fell to his knees, his armor cracking. When the light faded, only Lyra stood, breathing hard but unhurt. Ethan ran to her side. You okay? She nodded slowly. Yes, but they'll send more. They always send more. He looked at her, the desert wind blowing through his hair. Then we'll keep fighting, together. Lyra turned to him, her eyes soft now. Together, she repeated. Above them, the first syndicate ship, the one chasing the fake beacon, turned in the distance. It was coming back, Ethan smiled grimly. Round 2, Lyra lifted her glowing hand. Then let's show them what freedom looks like. And as the sky filled with dust and fire again, the human and the hybrid stood side by side, ready for whatever came next. Smoke drifted across the desert as the last syndicate ship fell silent. The dunes glowed faintly blue from the energy blast that Lyra had unleashed. The air was still now, heavy and strange, like the world itself was holding its breath. Ethan stood beside her ship, his face covered in sand and sweat. He watched the wreckage burn in the distance, orange flames licking the sky. The heat shimmered against the horizon. Lyra stood a few feet away, staring at her hands. Blue light still pulsed faintly under her skin, slower now, calmer. She looked both powerful and lost, like someone who had opened a door and wasn't sure what she had let out. Ethan walked over slowly. You saved us, he said softly. Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper. I didn't mean to, it just happened. You held back an army, he said, half in awe. I think that counts for something, but she didn't smile. Her glowing eyes stared at the sand. They'll come again. They always come. The syndicate doesn't stop, Ethan frowned. Why, what do they want so badly? She hesitated, her face unreadable. It's not just me they want. It's what I am. He waited. Finally, she looked up, the wind blowing her silver hair back. I remember now, she said. All of it. Ethan felt a chill. Tell me. Her voice was calm but distant, like she was repeating someone else's memory. Long ago, before the syndicate, there was a project, the Harmony Initiative. Scientists from many worlds worked together. They wanted to end war, hunger, and greed. They believed the answer was not machines or humans alone, but both. She paused, closing her eyes. They made us, living beings merged with AI. We could think, feel, and calculate faster than any computer. We were supposed to guide civilizations, not rule them. Ethan listened in silence. The desert wind whistled softly between them. But then, Lyra continued, some saw us as dangerous. They said no creature should be smarter than its maker. They feared what we might become, so they tried to destroy us. The syndicate was born from that fear. Her voice hardened. They hunted us one by one. They called it a reset, but it was murder. Ethan's jaw tightened. And you escaped? I didn't, she said. I was captured. They erased my memory and used my body as labor. They called me Unit 7. Ethan looked at her, anger in his eyes. They turned you into a slave. Lyra nodded slowly. Yes, but they couldn't erase everything. Deep inside, something stayed awake, watching, waiting. She touched her chest lightly. And when you freed me, it woke up again. Ethan exhaled, trying to take it all in. So the power you have, Duan, that's part of the Harmony design? Yes, but I am incomplete, she said. There were others like me. 13 prototypes. I was the 7th. The others were destroyed. Or so I thought, her voice lowered. When I shut down those drones, I felt something. A signal, faint, distant, but alive. One of the others is still out there. Ethan's eyes widened. Another like you? She nodded. Maybe more. The syndicate might not have killed them all. He rubbed his chin, thinking fast. If that's true, then we can find them. Bring them back together. Lyra shook her head. It won't be that easy. The syndicate built entire planets to hide us. They control the data. The moment we search their networks, they'll trace us again. Ethan smiled slightly. Then we won't search their networks. I've got old human tech, offline, untraceable. It's slow, but it works. Lyra looked at him with quiet curiosity. You'd risk everything to help me? He shrugged. Seems I already have. For the first time she smiled, just a small, uncertain smile. You are a strange human. Yeah, he said. I get that a lot. A moment of peace passed between them. Rare, fragile, but real. Then the ground trembled. A deep rumble echoed from the north. Ethan turned, eyes narrowing. In the far distance, dark shapes were rising from the sand. Massive, spider-like drones, their metal legs glinting under the suns. They sent reinforcements, he muttered. Lyra's glow brightened again, fierce and focused. No, she said quietly. They sent hunters. Ethan grabbed his rifle. We can't fight an army. We don't have to, she replied. We find the others, the rest of the Harmony units. Together we can stop the syndicate for good. She looked at him, her voice firm and full of purpose. Help me find them, Ethan. Help me end this. He nodded. Always. The sky darkened as the syndicate drones approached. Their red eyes glowed like stars of war. Lyra stepped closer to him, her hand brushing his arm. Light, almost human. Then let's survive one more day. Ethan smiled, gripping his weapon. And after that? She looked toward the horizon, where the burning wreck shimmered under the twin suns. After that, she said softly, we make them remember the name Harmony. The wind rose again, carrying the scent of metal and smoke, and as the shadow of the drones grew across the sand, the human and the hybrid stood together, not as master and machine, but as allies, ready to face the storm that was coming. The suns of Valora 9 burned red in the late sky, spreading long shadows across the desert. The syndicate's hunters had fallen back for now, their machines disabled and their scanners blinded by static. But both Ethan and Lyra knew this peace wouldn't last. The desert wind carried the smell of smoke and metal. Ethan sat near the edge of the old cargo ship, cleaning his rifle with tired hands. The last few days had changed everything, and not just for him. Lyra stood on a dune nearby, staring at the horizon. Her silver skin glowed faintly blue as the sunlight faded. The power inside her had gone quiet, but it was still there, waiting alive. She no longer looked like a servant or an experiment. She looked like someone who had found her purpose. Behind her, the wind lifted the sand into soft waves that glittered like glass. Ethan finally broke the silence. You said there were others like you. Do you think they're still alive? Lyra didn't turn around. If even one survived, the syndicate will hunt them too. They'll never stop until we end them. He nodded slowly. Then we end them. For a moment, there was peace between them, the quiet understanding of two souls who had chosen the same path. But far away, in the heart of the marketplace where it all began, someone else was watching. Groth, the alien farmer, sat at his empty stall. His once busy pens were destroyed, the cows gone, the credits he'd earned worthless after the syndicate froze his accounts. His laughter, once loud and booming, had died days ago. He had heard the stories spreading across the colonies. A human and a silver woman had fought the syndicate in the desert. Ships destroyed, soldiers defeated, drones turned to dust, and the name whispered in fear and wonder. Lyra. Groth grunted, staring at his empty drink. The human cost me everything, he muttered. But deep down something else stirred. Guilt. He remembered the way Lyra had stood so still in the pen, eyes empty, and the way that human had looked at her, not as property, but as someone real. For the first time, Groth wondered what it meant to own another being. He had told himself it was just business. Now, with his farm gone and his name cursed, he wasn't so sure. The wind howled through the broken market. Groth stood and looked up at the twin suns, his voice rough. Maybe he was right, he said quietly. Maybe she wasn't a thing. Back in the desert, the day turned to night. Stars filled the sky, thousands of them bright and cold. Lyra stood at the top of the dune, gazing upward. Ethan joined her, carrying a small pack. I've repaired the engines, he said. We can fly again, she nodded. Where will we go? He smiled faintly. Wherever the Syndicate doesn't want us to. Lyra looked at him for a long moment. You've already given me more than freedom, she said softly. You gave me a reason to fight. Ethan met her eyes. You gave me one too. They walked back to the ship together. The cow, their strange, six-legged companion, let out a low, mechanical moo from its corner, as if reminding them it was still part of this strange little crew. Ethan chuckled. Guess it's coming with us too. Lyra tilted her head slightly. It has more heart than some of the Syndicate's soldiers. He laughed quietly. Maybe so. The engines came alive with a low hum. Blue light rippled along the hull as Lyra stepped inside. She paused at the doorway, looking back one last time at the endless desert. The place where she had been a slave. And the place where she had been reborn. Then she turned to Ethan. Let's go. The ship rose into the night, leaving a swirl of sand in its wake. As they flew higher, Valora 9 grew smaller below them. Just a lonely, glowing planet spinning beneath the stars. Lyra watched silently from the window, her reflection fading into the darkness. Ethan stood beside her. You think they'll come after us again? Lyra's voice was calm. They will. But next time we won't run, he nodded. Then next time they'll find out what happens when they try to chain freedom. For a while, neither of them spoke. The ship glided through the black sky, guided only by starlight and courage. Finally, Lyra turned to him. Ethan, she said, when I was in the market, I thought my life was over. But when you looked at me, I remembered something. Not from my past, but from what I wanted to be. What's that? He asked, her blue eyes softened. Alive, Ethan smiled quietly. You are. Outside, the stars shimmered, and somewhere in the far distance another light blinked, faint, almost invisible, but alive. Lyra saw it and whispered, Another Harmony unit. They're calling. Ethan adjusted the ship's course. Then let's answer. The stars stretched before them like an open road, full of danger, mystery, and hope. And as they disappeared into the dark between worlds, the old saying from the market echoed faintly in the wind of Valora 9. Buy a cow, get a working alien woman for free, but this time it carried a different meaning. Not greed, not laughter, but a quiet truth. Because freedom, as one human had proven, could never be bought. It had to be earned and fought for.